In the final days of World War II, as Nazi Germany collapsed and Europe lay in ruins, the United States made a decision so secretive that it would remain hidden for decades. It wasn't about rebuilding cities or celebrating victory, it was about people. Some of the most brilliant and most controversial minds the Third Reich had ever produced. This was Operation Paperclip, a covert mission that quietly brought former Nazi scientists into the heart of America's military and space programs. And what followed raises a disturbing question. What projects were so important that the US was willing to erase the past of men once working for Hitler? As Allied forces advanced across Germany in 1945, intelligence officers raced against time to secure enemy technology. The Nazis had developed weapons far ahead of anything the Allies possessed: advanced rockets, jet aircraft, guided missiles, and experimental systems that felt almost futuristic. But technology alone wasn't enough. The real prize was the scientists behind it. American officials feared that if they didn't act fast, the Soviet Union would recruit these experts instead. What began as a scramble for knowledge soon turned into a morally gray operation that would reshape modern history. Officially, the US government claimed it would never employ former Nazis, especially those connected to war crimes. Unofficially, those rules were quietly rewritten under Operation Paperclip. Hundreds of German scientists and engineers were secretly brought to the United States. Their Nazi affiliations were hidden, sanitized, or completely erased from their files. Paperclips were literally used to attach new, clean biographies to their dossiers, giving the operation its name. One of the most famous figures recruited was Werner von Braun, the mastermind behind the V-2 rocket program during the war. His rockets rained destruction on London, killing thousands of civilians. His factories relied on forced labor from concentration camps, where countless prisoners died from starvation, disease, and brutal conditions. Yet just a few years later, von Braun was working for the US Army and eventually became a leading architect of NASA's space program. The man who once built weapons for Hitler would later help put American astronauts on the moon. But von Braun was only the public face of Operation Paperclip. Behind him were chemists, physicians, aeronautical engineers, and weapons experts whose work went far beyond rockets. Some had been involved in human experimentation, chemical weapons research, and advanced surveillance technologies. These individuals were placed inside US military bases, research labs, and classified programs, often with little oversight and complete secrecy. So what were these scientists really working on? Official records talk about missiles, jet propulsion, and space exploration, but declassified documents and whistleblower accounts suggest something far more unsettling. Paperclip scientists played key roles in developing intercontinental ballistic missiles, early drone technology, and psychological warfare programs during the Cold War. Some researchers were linked to classified mind control experiments, chemical agents, and behavioral studies that pushed ethical boundaries to the limit. There are long-standing claims that experimental research from the wartime era explored advanced flight concepts and powerful technologies far ahead of their time. And experimental aircraft didn't simply disappear after the war but continued under new funding and new flags. While many of these rumors remain unproven, the sheer level of secrecy surrounding Operation Paperclip has fueled decades of speculation. If the projects were truly harmless, critics ask, why hide them for so long? The human cost of Operation Paperclip is often overlooked. Holocaust survivors and families of war victims were forced to watch as former enemies were rewarded with comfortable lives in America. Some Paperclip scientists lived freely, earned prestigious awards, and died without ever facing justice. For many, this felt like a betrayal of everything the war was supposed to stand for. By the 1970s, fragments of the truth began to emerge. Investigative journalists uncovered evidence that the US government had knowingly protected individuals with documented ties to Nazi crimes. Congressional hearings followed, but by then, most of the scientists were elderly or deceased. The full scope of their work and the long-term consequences remains partially buried in classified archives. Operation Paperclip forces us to confront an uncomfortable reality. The Cold War wasn't just a battle of ideologies. It was a race where morality was often sacrificed for survival. The United States gained powerful technology and scientific dominance, but at a cost. That still haunts history. Progress was accelerated, but justice was delayed and, in some cases, denied entirely. Today, the legacy of Operation Paperclip lives on in America's missile systems, space exploration, achievements, and military research institutions. It also lives on as a warning, a reminder of how easily lines can blur when fear and power collide. The question isn't just whether Operation Paperclip helped America win the Cold War. The real question is whether some secrets should ever have been buried in the first place. If you want to uncover more hidden files, forbidden history, and the dark truths buried behind official narratives, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because some stories weren't forgotten, they were deliberately hidden.